Welcome to this very special conversation with someone who understands our real estate market better than most, Khushru Jijina. Khushru, thank you so much for spending time with us. We appreciate your time. We're at a very interesting point in our market right now. We're going to have a regulator in states like Maharashtra perhaps in the next 1 month, and in other states in a maximum of a year. It'll change the way we deal with this market. Now, you're looking at it from an investor's point of view. Do you see this as a move for the better, or do you think that we are going to see maybe a year or so of pain in the market when the regulator comes in?
So let me answer it differently. Obviously, the answer is yes, that RERA will bring in more transparency and the safety of the money for the investors. There's no doubt about that. But what are the good things and what else can impact thanks to RERA? So first, let's take a step back. If we really look at the real estate industry in our country, it is one industry which has always beaten me because there's no entry barrier. Everyone who has a parcel of land becomes a real estate developer. And if you really go back in time in the good old days, people, it is actually a very consumer centric industry. But the way it has been handled is exactly opposite. Because the developer is in relation with the customer for 5 years, maybe more, and he really treats the customer like shit.
Yeah.
But now the things will change. It has already changed thanks to the last 2-3 years where the industry is not doing well. But RERA will definitely bring in this change. It will bring in discipline because only the big boys, or I would say it is actually going to segregate the men from the boys. It is the big boys who have corporate governance, who have cash flow management. Cash management is the key in this business, the discipline in cash management. So RERA is going to bring that. Having said that, I would also like to say that I don't see the prices coming down.
Okay.
Because thanks to that, with 70% of the money being kept in escrow, obviously, when an industrialist or a businessman is using the cash flows across his businesses, which is normal, right? You can't keep in one asset liquid and you're borrowing on the other. Now that's going to stop. So obviously the cost, I don't think will come down. But overall, I think it's very good for the industry in terms of the safety, in terms of safety of the money of the consumers. Developers will ensure that they will try to complete the projects. So I think it's good for the industry and also good for the developers because I also see RERA as probably one of the stimulus for the real estate industry coming back.
One of the responses we've heard from developers, and we've been talking to a lot of them about RERA, is that they expect, first of all, supply to come down drastically once the regulator comes in because they have to have all of their permissions, because of the 70% escrow and all of the other things. That's one. The other thing they expect, of course, is that they will see an increase in prices because the escrow, like you rightly said, will need to be serviced. A 5-year warranty will need to be serviced. So from an investor's point of view, do you see this as a more challenging market to function in the sense that there are so many more rules to adhere to? So the risk that comes on to your investment of maybe getting stuck at various points of, with regulation, does that increase?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Because what is the real risk in real estate? It's cash flow. It's not profit. If you really see a good project or even a fairly average project will always give you profits, even in a bad market. It's the cash flow management which kills the developers. And if you really do the study of the last 2-3 years, who have gone under? It's bad cash flow management. So an investor like us, whether it's in equity or even in debt or structured debt, basically we take the call on the cash flows of the project. Here, in fact, the cash flows are far more secure.
Do you expect consolidation in this market going forward, post-regulator?
So, in fact, my answer is different. In fact, I have already seen consolidation in the market for the last 6 months.
Will it increase, though?
Yes, absolutely. It will drive consolidation, again, which is very good for the industry.
Given the approach that you're taking at this point, and I want our viewers to understand, because I believe these are pointers we can all learn from. I want you to help us understand how you're picking your partners. It's, for an average consumer, and we're getting these questions saying, I can't tell the difference between good developer and bad developer anymore because the really large ones are in trouble. So tell us how you're picking your partners. How are you picking someone who will honor the debt, honor the servicing structures that you put in? What is the criteria that you're using?
In any business, and especially in our business of real estate, I think 80% is the counterparty. Talking about myself, how we pick up or we choose, I think it's the counterparty which is very important to us. So even to give an example, if the project is excellent, but if I'm not comfortable with the counterparty, I won't do the deal.
Okay.
Now, how we go about Now that obviously is also the experience and the knowledge of the market of who is good, who is not good. Now how do you define who is good? That's your question. I think it's basically the corporate governance, is the intention of the developer, not the ability of the developer to pay you back.
Right.
That's very important, the intention. Because at the end of the day, any business can go up and down, but if the intention is right, you get your money back. Again, we look at his execution capability.
So are there some pockets of this market, some apples that don't have the intention to pay back, you're saying?
So in fact, it's a very interesting question you're asking. There were lots of them in 2006, and that's why a lot of private equity from overseas and India and domestically lost their money. But today, obviously, over this period of 7-8 years, people know who is good and who is not good. So in fact, those people, as we speak, are disappearing. Because why they're disappearing? Because now, people know who they are, and nobody is wanting to lend. In fact, customers are not ready to buy. So automatically, this consolidation, this movement is happening in this market because people are able to see, people are smarter, whether it's a customer, whether it's an investor, or whether it's a lender.
Sure.
So it's very interesting right now that I would say very few people would debate today who is good and who is bad. Everyone knows who is good and who is bad.
How does your fund in particular enforce a payment structure when you're, in the odd case that you have someone who doesn't have the intention to pay, doesn't have the ability to pay back at a point?
So luckily, let me tell you, touch wood, so far as we speak, we haven't had a single default as of now in this last 3 years, which we have lent and we have invested money. But having said that, obviously, like any other lender or investor, we have rights of stepping in. Unlike most of my colleagues in the NBFCs, we are probably one of the few who can actually step in into a project because we understand real estate ourselves. And if that happens, we'll be definitely stepping in. We will not be shy of stepping into the project and taking over and completing the project and giving the money back to if this investors or it is our own money. Just to give you an example, in our vintage fund, which was Fund 1, which was launched in 2006, without naming the developer, we had 2 of these occasions actually. And we did step in, one in Bangalore and one in Hyderabad. And as we speak today, part of the money has actually been returned thanks to the efforts of our team.
Okay. There are some particular projects, investments that you had made, Aristo, Acme, a couple of years ago. There's Samsri in Hyderabad. Ambience in 2011. One of those projects was a hotel that had to be then sort of repurposed into luxury housing. Some of it has not exactly worked out. How are you working with these projects, with these developers right now to recover your money?
So let me go project by project,
okay,
if that's what you
Please.
want. So Acme actually is a debt, and as we speak, it is a very regular account. So I'm very surprised you're asking this question, because actually it's a very regular account. In fact, sometimes in between when the cash flows are good, in fact, we have seen prepayments in this project.
Okay.
So Acme, I'm surprised with this question. Second was Ambience. Ambience was from our Fund 4. So this was the investment into Gurgaon with the developer. As we speak, I think this year probably we will actually exit the project.
Okay. The Aristo project that you had
So Aristo,
picked
again,
up?
as we speak, Aristo has been one of our very old clients. I'm very happy to say that. So they have gone through their ups and downs definitely in the market, and we have stuck to them. And that's again our philosophy, that if we like the counterparty, as I mentioned to you before,
Yes,
we stick to the developer because we know that at the end of the day, he will come back. And that's actually very differentiates us from our competition. So again, coming back to Aristo, as we speak today, I'm very happy to tell you that most of my money from Aristo in my funds have actually been returned at 24 to 26% IRR.
Okay.
Yes.
And the last one was Samsri in Hyderabad.
Amshri.
Amshri.
So Amshri is actually an example of our overseas fund which had invested in Hyderabad. There we have, as we speak, we have just last month taken over the entire 260 acres from Amshri. And I will not give you the name of the developer right now. We have just signed an MOU with one of the top 5 developers of Bangalore. So I'm happy to tell you that what a few months ago was looking as a dud investment, we are going to recover not only our money but with some profit.
So you also do long-term patient capital on some level, but you're so selective in this market. How is that? I mean, if you say the industry needs it, anyone like yourself who has the money is going to be super selective at this point. That wouldn't be a solution for the entire industry, would it?
No. So I'll answer it differently. You just asked me whether the industry is consolidating. So when the industry is consolidating, the 20/80 rule, as I say, is applying. 20% are becoming stronger, 80% are dying. Some are dying today, some are dying tomorrow. So obviously that 20% which will emerge through this entire pain, yes, there will be pain in the next 2 years, but then the people who will emerge, I'm sure I'm going to give them money, whether it's private equity or loan to whoever they want, whoever is the counterparty, because they have emerged as a strong party.
You're also looking at funding land acquisition at this point, which is a big deal because nobody does it in this market. Again, how are you being selective? How are you, explain to us how you're going to make that happen?
So again, I think let me define this in two parts. One is our land fund, which we are doing basically so it's not really land as in land. Let me just explain that. It's basically in Bangalore, we realized when we were giving debt that there are two types of business models in the residential space. One is the normal, you buy the land or you do a JDA, the developer, and he makes the apartments or villas. The other is the plotted, where, because in the south people like to buy the land. And actually that's a separate business which does very well with separate set of developers, by the way.
Yes.
And we realized that we used to get prepaid very fast. So one of the learnings of ours was that basically he's also forced to sell the plots faster because he needs to pay me month on month.
And at a slightly compromised price.
Absolutely, because in land, the longer you wait, you can realize better pricing. So actually that idea came from there. So we decided that why not give him equity for plotted. So that's what is our land fund.
Okay.
Coming to the other business, which we have just, we used to do it through our domestic funds, but now, as we have announced, very soon we will come to the market with patient capital to help our developers acquire land parcels. So again, that will be to the developers who, in my language, are the alpha developers, are the tier 1 developers. And that's the need of the hour.
I also want to understand from you right now, the RBI governor has said several times that it's time for the industry to relook at prices. Is there really room for the industry to relook at prices? Are there any margins at all that the developer can give up at this point?
So actually, this question, I think everyone keeps on asking. I've even heard you asking a lot on this point. But the answer is actually very simple. Let's understand the costs for the developer. One obviously is the cost of the land. Then is obviously the interest cost or the private equity cost and the construction cost. But we are also forgetting there's a lot of taxes which are loaded onto this of late. And that is actually killing this, I would say, this industry. And talking about prices coming down, already the margins are under pressure for the developers. So honestly,
if we look at the listed real estate players, whether they're in Bangalore or in Mumbai, some of them alphas by your definition, the margins are either single digit or very close to single digit at this point. So, that's not where the RBI governor's rate, price cut is going to come from. It has to come from the government, is what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. So you're answering your own question.
You've also...
I think, if I may just add,
please.
It's not only the taxes, it's also the approval timelines. Please understand, if in any micro market or city, if the government is going to take 2 years to give permissions, the interest is not sleeping, it's it's going on, it's adding to the cost. So I think, if you ask me really, the government needs to do something more than what others need to do if the prices have to come down, actually.
So let's do this as a review exercise. There's the NCR market. Several problems of multiplicity of authorities in the NCR market. A lot of passing the buck happens between the 3 state governments and then, of course, the various municipal corporations. There's Mumbai and the MMR municipal corporations. Bangalore, I know that you're also looking at Chennai. Which government do you think, in terms of approvals and ease of doing business, is the most proactive at this point?
So obviously, I'm not going to answer that question. But
the best. Okay, tell me which one is the best.
But I'll answer it differently in the way we look at it. So I will not going to rank them. But definitely, I think in Mumbai, we are seeing a very good change. And I mean it really. I think under the new government, right from the chief minister, we are actually seeing things being moved. I've attended so many conferences of our real estate. Last year we had NatCon, we had Credai, and we had Naritco. I think the messaging is very clear. They want developers to get permission faster. That's why they are putting the online system so that the developers is not harassed by the bureaucrats or the people. I think the intent is there. And we are actually seeing it on the ground. I mean it in terms of Maharashtra. Coming to Bangalore, Bangalore has always been a good market in terms of permissions. Of course, there have been issues in the recent past, in the last 2 years, on some TDR issue, which has actually again, taken the industry back in terms of cost, and especially in a market which is right now in a downturn. So otherwise, Bangalore historically has been quite a safe bet in terms of approvals. You know the probability of getting your permissions within a particular timeline. So I think these two markets definitely we understand. Other markets really, I really cannot comment on, because I really don't understand those markets.
But there's another completely different angle, especially if you're talking about Bangalore. An NGT order that changed, the way projects around lakes can measure their spaces. This is again, I'm assuming, a massive risk for the industry, that after all approvals are in place, after environment approvals are in place, there's a fresh order that comes from the NGT that changes everything. We saw it happen in the past in the NCR, now it's happening in Bangalore. Again, as an investor with stake in this industry, does that worry you?
In fact,
the manner of the functioning?
Again, a very good question you ask. It's very sad. In fact, I see that this industry has become the punching bag of everybody. It's unfortunate, because everyone puts in serious money, whether it's a developer, we as private equity or lenders, then the customers have given the advances, and suddenly something comes with either retrospective effect or you just say stop it. How can that work? We are not a banana republic. So I think, in fact, this is a serious issue. Now coming to this NGT issue, while I'm not an authority to comment on it, but just as a common man, what is the rationale to suddenly say it's not 30 meters, it's 75, why not 50, why not 100, and suddenly coming and not understanding the money being pumped into the system. I think this is a cause of worry. We had something like that in Mumbai, I think 2 years ago, that within 10 kilometers of the Doppler you cannot. Now that's not for the industry to worry about. The government has to worry about the Doppler. Now just because the Doppler has been put in Navy Nagar doesn't mean that all the buildings need to stop. Now it's actually very sad. It's become a punching bag of whoever wants to do anything.
And all of these things add to timelines, add to project cost, add eventually to the price of the home that the developer is selling.
And who gets blamed? The poor developer at the end of the day.
I also want to understand which areas of the market right now you're seeing most promising. You said you're seeing a difference and an uptick across the market. But from the villa plotted down to the affordable housing, where do you see that turnaround or that slow U-turn happening first?
So again, I'll answer this very differently. I always say that please don't speak about the real estate market from 60,000 feet above, because it's a very local game. Even in a city, you need to break it down into micro markets. So I wouldn't answer it in micro markets for lack of time, but at least let me attempt city-wise. I think the Mumbai market is actually coming back.
Okay.
Now people get surprised when I say it, because the 80-20 rule applies, because they are still seeing from outside the 80% people suffering. But from as far as I'm concerned, the 20% developers with whom we have spotted and working, they've actually started launching and it's doing very well. I can give several examples, but I would not like to name anybody right now. But we are seeing things coming back. So just to give you an example what I mean by that. So today, the customer has identified the developer with whom he wants to put his money. So what I mean is that if even 2 years, why go far? If say in a Mulund micro market, a good developer has launched his project at say 10,000 rupees, and a proposal comes to me that this is a slightly B category developer, but he's going to launch it at 8,000 rupees. I would have bought the argument that time that maybe he'll sell. Not today, because the customer is very clear that he doesn't want to give 8,000 to the B category. He would rather give 10,000 to the A category guy. So that the segregating of the men from the boys has already happened or is happening in Mumbai. I can actually see it. Coming to Bangalore has always been, people know who are the top developers. I don't need to say it. Only thing, the slowdown has happened thanks to this TDR issue, which hopefully should get sorted out. It's been languishing for the last 1.5, 2 years now. I'm very happy to know, to tell you that especially since because we are probably one of the largest today lenders or equity investors in these markets in India, we actually get data month on month, primary data from all the investments. And from March onwards, it's a little early, but from March onwards, I've started seeing the uptick even in the Gurgaon market of all our developers. So I'm watching it. with fingers crossed, but we have suddenly started seeing a trend of little things are better from March onwards, even in Gurgaon, but little early in the day.
So within Mumbai, at least, there are two very different action points. Obviously, there's the central Mumbai, Worli, Lower Parel, Paikala area where there's a lot of luxury and upwards of luxury coming up. And then there's the suburbs, there's Mulund and Thane, Navi Mumbai, all of these neighborhoods, Godbandha Road where we saw a lot of launches. When you compare the two, are you seeing enough signs of life in central Mumbai in that luxury market? Because for a year we felt that there was so much supply that hit that market all at one go that we ran out of HNIs to buy in Mumbai.
So I'll again answer it in various parts. Yeah, you're right. In a way, you're right. Central Mumbai, the supply of the similar type of specs and the sizes, I think is going to slow down. I would not say slow down. There are not so many buyers. So at the end of the day, it will take a longer time for them to sell. Having said that, I'll also answer it differently. Every micro market, since we're talking Mumbai, has an unwritten price point, or I would say the ticket size. So, for example, a central suburb will have X as a ticket size, a western suburb will have Y, and central suburb will have Z. I think the mistake many developers have made, since we are talking of central suburb, are twofold. One is there's a lot of supply.
Yes.
Over and above that, I don't think many have priced their product or with the sizes or the ticket size rightly. So what do I mean? Luxury, the word luxury in itself, many people say luxury doesn't sell. It's wrong. Luxury mixed with volume doesn't sell. So for example, in central Mumbai, you see a lot of properties coming up with 200 flats of 8,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet. Now, if I need to buy a 10,000 square feet in central Mumbai, I will not buy it in that, in that building. I would rather go to, say, a Worli Sea Face where there are only 10 of my neighbors and pay the price.
Density matters.
Yes. So that also has gone wrong if I look at it. So I think it's a dual impact on central. One is the supply and also large. So in other words, I would have looked at anywhere around 4 to, at the most, even stretching it to 8 crores as a ticket size in central Mumbai. After that, it becomes a challenge.
I want to understand if within the financial services arm of Piramal, you're looking at entering the housing finance space.
So we are not looking at entering the housing finance space. That's not correct. I think because in our financial services, as you know, Piramal is invested in a company called Shriram. Shriram Housing Finance is actually doing the retail finance business. What we are trying to do is help Shriram Housing Finance get inroads into our developers so that they can give loans to their customers. That's what we are going to do.
Okay, what is the total size of the business of financial services your vision has right now in terms of that arm also playing out and all of it together? When you combine all of the financial services together, where is the vision for this company going forward?
See, obviously the vision, I can't put a number, but as you know, in whatever we do, and as any business house, we would like to be relevant, and we obviously want to be among the top 3 or 5. So that's what we are working on. So obviously on the wholesale book, which I run, we have plans to enter new segments like commercial, etc. And Shriram Housing is right now, as we speak, working on plan to widen or widen their products. So just if you look at Shriram Housing, they really concentrate on serving the unserved in tier 2, tier 3 cities. They are now, as we speak, making a plan, their strategy, which is the Shriram group, not us.
Yes.
Making the strategy of how to widen the ambit so they can offer it from, say, 11.5 to 16%. So obviously, when they come to the city, it has to be, they'll be competing with the ICICIs and the HDFCs of the world. So that's what they're working on. Once they're ready, I think they should be in the next few months. We will then we'll open the doors for them through our developer relationships.
I want advice for developers and advice for consumers right now before we wrap up this interview. Developers first. It's a tough market. It's a tough business right now. Also, like you rightly said, they're dealing with a system where everybody sees the developer as the big bad wolf, which might not always be the case. What advice do you have for developers to take them through the next 1 year at least?
So I am too small to advise the developers, but I think the answer is very simple, which they themselves know today. thanks to this downturn which has happened in the last few years, I think clearly developers need to show execution. They clearly need to show work on the ground. Gone are those days when you do a launch and you forget the customer. They need to be customer centric. They need to bring corporate governance and communication with the customer. The customer is the king at the end of the day. I think this needs to be done, which many are doing, and that's why you see them doing well. And obviously cash flow management. I think it's the key to our business. To the consumers, I would say that today actually is the best time to buy if you need a house. Why I'm saying that? Because the choices are so many. And we have seen it historically in this industry. When the uptick happens, it happens so fast.
Yes.
And it becomes very difficult for you again to get this situation. So I am in fact telling all my friends that if you need a house today, this is the time to buy.
And is this the time to buy then under construction property, or is it the time to go out and buy something that's ready to occupy?
It's what you desire. So if ultimately at the end of the day there's something called budget for each individual, right? So if you do not have budget, or you do not have the time to wait, if you do not have the time, you have to buy.
Or the risk appetite to to not get delivery, which is a huge problem in several of our markets. Delay in delivery, which is what makes a lot of customers very, very nervous. How would you advise a customer to mitigate that risk?
I think the most important is the counterparty, as I said, and I think today it is already. I can see it happening in many micro markets. Why are certain developers doing so well now? In the last, it's more than 6 months now. I've been seeing some launches doing very well. Because the people believe that the money is safe. So I wouldn't bother much as long as you select the right developer. I think it all boils down to your budget and whether you want the property immediately. I think it boils down to that. As long as you take the right selection of the developer.
All right. So the big learning is, of course, just like you are, to be super selective about who you part your money with and who you park your money with.
Absolutely.
Khushru, thank you so much for spending time with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you good luck.
Thank you.
You can watch live TV on our website mpnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magicbricks Now. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magicbricks Now. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/Magicbricks Now.